I think, in terms of really solving what we think here is a major problem in the world. And so, with that, I want to kind of turn now to a practical, more hands-on view of how stablecoins and blockchains can help solve some of these problems. And I'm very pleased to welcome Danelle Dixon, CEO of the Stellar Foundation, a project who are, quote, creating equitable access to the global financial system. Hello, Danelle.
Hi, Jeremy. So great to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Really nice to see you and really appreciate you joining today. Well, maybe we'll start a little bit with you. You've spent a lot of your career helping to foster open access to information, including, I think, driving some really significant internet companies, technologies that touched hundreds of millions of people. Maybe just start with talking a little bit about what drew you into the digital currency realm and why blockchains, why this problem right now?
Yeah, it's very much the same as why I went into the space of the web and what I call the content side of the web to begin with. I think that so much there we had promise to be able to create access to information and ideas and innovation for everyone all over the world. And I think that, taking all of those learnings and some of the things that we did wrong on the content side of the web, I think that, we handled privacy in a way that we said, regulators, stay away from us. We actually don't need your help to figure out privacy. And I think we were wrong when we first did that. I think to be able to take those learnings and move that over to another part of a technology that can actually have even greater impact because it's dealing with money and access to the financial system, which we take for granted, I think, from where we sit, just creates an opportunity to be able to do this side right. And what I mean by that is to engage with regulators all over the world, to help to create and foster those relationships, to not look to supplant, but look to enhance a financial system that exists today. So there's just so much opportunity here. And I think blockchain being, when I first started, I've been in this space for a little over a year. And when I first started, I used to call it nascent technology. I don't think it's nascent anymore. I think it's it's picked up. Yeah, it's picked up pretty quickly and moved. And so I feel like using this technology layer, which frankly, not everyone in the world needs to understand that layer of technology, much like you don't need to understand the underpinnings of the internet, but you need to be able to gain benefits and to derive value from it. And that's our goal. And so for me, that's just crazy exciting.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I think both of us have the perspective of these other phases of the internet, and we can see the analogies, we can see where things break and so on. But yeah, I mean, everyone opens up their mobile phone and can get to all the content everywhere and have access to all the world's knowledge. And they, young people sort of grow up with it, take it for granted. It's just like, of course, there's infinite knowledge that I can access with like a voice command. But I think probably in 10 years, right, if you're successful, if we're all successful, people say the same thing about the way that they interact with the economy, the way that they interact with money. So I want to focus in on the work you're doing really specifically with the Stellar Foundation. And I mentioned the mission in introducing you, creating equitable access to the global financial system. Talk about that mission and talk about how you are starting to tackle that very, very immense problem, that Harish helped articulate for us in the numbers.
Yeah, no, that was awesome to hear those numbers. I mean, we focus on just a few of those numbers in terms of 1.7 billion adults globally are unbanked. And so from our standpoint, if you think about that number, but then you juxtapose that with 2/3 of them actually have mobile devices.
Right.
And so if we can actually take those two numbers and put them together and try to solve that problem. Yeah, like you can see where the value of something like this can happen, and folks can get access to it. So for us, we tried to synthesize our mission into that one sentence, creating equitable access to the global financial system, recognizing though that that's a mission that takes a really long time to accomplish. So you kind of got to break it up in bite-sized chunks. Yeah. And so for us now, what we're focused on is really developing what we call a minimum viable or even larger ecosystem, to think about making sure all the players in that whole stack are there, so that this technology layer can actually really be pushed out to the world in a way that's that can solve some of the problems that we just heard about this morning. And you got to think about it as, again, like there's this underpinning, which is the blockchain, but then there's stablecoins, which you obviously know so much about, and how those stablecoins interact and create the opportunity to go from fiat currency to digital currency back to fiat. So if you so choose, and to go in and off and on and off the blockchain, what we really need to do from, Stellar is a public blockchain. And what we really need to do is create those, what we call in our ecosystem, anchors. So those on-ramps and off-ramps that you can actually get in and out of the blockchain from fiat to digital, digital to fiat. And so our focus, the bite-sized chunk that we're focused on, at least for this year, is really developing even more. We have many that are already participants in the ecosystem.
Yeah, I've seen that. You've got a lot of activity in the stablecoin space with Stellar. And
we have and we would like a lot more, even Circle. We would like Circle. So to have these corridors open so that you can actually see payment channels, and you can see folks actually interacting and using this for remittances and just for cross-border payments. It's already pretty great, but it's that bite-sized chunk of growing that anchor base and creating the financial institutions, which aren't necessarily banks. They're they come in different shapes and forms. They're all regulated on the edges, and so that's an important piece, because regulators know how to deal with money. And so I think that's an important component too. So that's our core focus, is to work with regulators to get them comfortable with blockchain generally, and to get them to understand that this is actually enhancing their system and their ability to be able to provide even more access to their constituents.
That makes a lot of sense. Familiar territory. I think, when that happens, if you sort of see that the sort of the digital wallets lighting up, the on and off ramps lighting up, what does that look like to those, I guess the 70% of the 1.7 billion or whatever, the 1.2 billion, what does that look like for them? What becomes possible for them as that happens?
So I think that's it's such an important question, and I think about it all the time. I think about it in like the World Bank example. If you think about folks out there in the world who don't have bank accounts, but they can have a wallet, and they actually don't need to understand that they can, if they so choose, but don't need to be able to understand all the inner workings of blockchain. But if their wallet allows them to take their currency, to convert it to digital, and then to send it to family that's in some other region, it's actually that simple. Or if the World Bank, for example, were to lend money using a digital wallet or a digital currency that they control, and then it gets all the way down to the farmer that's doing the actual work through a wallet. Again, and that farmer he can or she can know, but they don't need to know how this all came to be. It's just another layer of technology that they get used to.
For so many of these people, right, that they can turn on WhatsApp, or they can turn on their phone, they can click a URL and get to content and do all these things. They sort of take it for granted that they have the world in their hand. And then there's this missing piece. So we're really trying to fill in that layer, and again, encouraging signs. I think as you talked about, there are these sort of layers and getting these pieces in place. And I look at things like public blockchains and then stablecoins as sort of building blocks for this new global financial system, this new, more open and inclusive global financial system. And there's a lot of talk about the sort of value exchange piece, getting value from point A to point B, taking the cost out, making it easier, more access. But what are the next layers that get built? Again, hearing Harish talk about the disparities in terms of access to other financial services, are those the next layers that come once we get this value exchange layer kind of dealt with?
I think it's so if you think about what does it mean for someone who doesn't have a bank account and can't get access to a bank account, the most important thing for them is to be able to access something that's simple, clean, easy to use. I think what we haven't done enough of on the blockchain side is using applications, but focusing on those applications from the user standpoint and just ease of use and simplicity. So I do think we need to have those wallets that we have many of them that are out there in the world already. But then we also need to be able to have, a company, DStock, is actually launching, and they're able to allow folks in all parts of the world to be able to purchase shares of stock in the US, but from everywhere in the world. Those are the kinds of things that really opens up the infrastructure and the ability to really derive value. So it's these applications that come in, again, they have to be simple from the user standpoint. And then they just open up opportunity. What about if you could hold assets? We already have this on some chains where you can hold assets and get interest with those assets. And so you don't have to have a bank account to do that, because some folks can't get to the banks. I mean, it's hard for us to understand this, but in other countries, banks aren't just on the corner.
Right.
So these are just, these kinds of applications are going to allow users to be able to just feel like they're present in this ecosystem that they've never been a part of before.
Yeah, it's a great vision. Speaking of vision, paint a picture for us all of what you see in 3 years, in 5 years. We're seeing acceleration. It's taken a while to get here, but lots of stuff are kind of coming in place. What do you hope that we see?
So I think it's so funny because I was just thinking this morning, we're doing a webinar next week on anchors, and anchors again are those financial institutions like, for example, Circle, who's issuing stable coins, or they can provide an on and off ramp. They come in different shapes. We have 1,400 folks attending from all over the globe because everyone's interested in how they can be part of this and become part of this system. So I feel like we're going to have all of these. I love the way that you think about lighting these visions up all around the world. We're going to have all these endpoints that you can see lit up all around the world. Yeah. And then I really do believe it's going to take some time, just like, for example, email. If you think about this as the blockchain in the same way email, you could send email not just within one walled garden. You could send it outside all these, to all the different walled gardens. That is what I think we're going to see. So we're going to be able to see corridors open up, people really being involved and part of the ecosystem. And then I think we'll see a lot more folks come in to develop these applications that we talk about from the user standpoint. So really solving user problems. So we're laying the foundations. You guys are, we are, in terms of here's the foundational technology that you can use. And now we just need like all these innovative, creative folks out there to be thinking about ways to engage. And that's what I think we're going to see in the next 3 years.
I wholeheartedly agree. It's really, really nice to hear your thoughts on this. Danelle, it was great to have you on. Thank you so much, and look forward to seeing you really soon.
Thanks, Jeremy. Take care.
Absolutely. So I think this sort of vision of these layers getting built, and the kind of blockchain layer, the stablecoin layer, these new types of markets that are available. And then, this is all fundamentally open public infrastructure